more of a relationship and an atmosphere in the home that is less strenuous and more conducive. But again, what does gratitude mean? How does gratitude come about? How much time does it take for gratitude? It's um, it's a process. It's a real strenuous process. And keep in mind, if a person is acknowledging these deficiencies in a marriage at a time when the marriage has already entered its decade or 2 decade, maybe 3 decade, or it's in its fifth year or fourth year, you have to understand that there's a level of catch up that needs to be done before we can get ahead of the curve. So over here, what we talked about last week was about choosing a good husband. And that was explained quite extensively, acknowledging that Barira radiallahu anha was given a choice, and the Prophet ﷺ somewhat insisted that she goes back and she said, are you commanding me? He said, no, I'm just trying to intervene. And she responded, I have no need. See, what happens is when we do these forced marriages or cultural marriages, the chances of them breaking up are high. And when they break up, we ruin two lives. And so these are not things we should do. These are things that we should be very careful of. Where Barira was forced to marry Mughith as a slave, they both were slaves. They ended up parting because she was like, I can't keep this marriage. Long story short, she walked away. He was greatly hurt, but I'm confident it also hurt her emotional state because there's a level of emotional investment that you put into a relationship in a marriage. Regardless if it works out or not, there's always going to be some level of repercussion emotionally, and it will require a certain level of healing. So, going back to this, regardless where we are in our marriages, we have to now work on patching up. Where our children are, don't put them in the same situation. I'm not saying here that a girl should go and pick who she wants only, or the father should impose on her who she should marry. It's both. It goes hand in hand that the kids understand, and there's some level of emotional inclination towards the other. And that's why we have time. You give time to both of them to get to know each other a bit more. It's not called dating, it's called getting to understand better before they get married, inshallah. So the Prophet Muhammad was deeply moved by this display of human emotion. This was in reference to Barira. Deep and overwhelming love on the part of the husband, and equally powerful hatred on the part of the wife. He could not help but remind the wife and ask her why didn't she go back to him, as he was her husband and the father of her child. This believing woman asked him whether he was ordering her to do so. Was this a command, a binding obligation? The Prophet ﷺ, the great lawgiver and educator, replied that he was merely trying to intercede and bring about reconciliation if possible. He was not trying to force anybody to do something they did not wish to. Let those stubborn, hard-hearted fathers who oppress their own daughters listen to the teaching of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And you know what? I don't blame the author for writing that statement, because truly we use the religion as the bargaining chip. Oh, you're going to disobey the father. You better get married to who I tell you to. This is what the religion states. And you know what? What has that religion done for us? That religion, not Islam, that religion, the religion that you make to assume that people can, impose on their children what they want in the name of Allah, in the name of Islam. The Muslim woman who understands the teachings of her husband has wise and correct standards when it comes to choosing a husband. She does not concern herself just with good looks, high status, a luxurious lifestyle, or any of the other things that usually attract women. She looks into her level of religious commitment and his attitude and behavior, because these are pillars of a successful marriage and the best features of a husband. Islamic teachings indicate the importance of these qualities in a potential husband, as Islam obliges a woman to accept the proposal of anyone who has these qualities. Less fitna and corruption become widespread in society. So the Prophet ﷺ said in hadith, and I'll just say the hadith and explain what the author just stated. The hadith is, if there comes to you one with whose religion and attitude you are satisfied, then give your daughter to that person in marriage. If you do not do so, fitna and mischief will become widespread on the earth. Let me explain this. So it's amazing that the external factors that have become the norm in our society, they're rich, they're successful, he's got a business, he's got a degree, he comes from a millionaire family. These are standards nowadays. And so what we do is that even before the marriage happens, the parents and their daughter, see some red flags in their attitude, in their behavior, in their practices, but we put a blinder on our eyes. No, they're too rich, they're too good. You cannot say that. But when it comes down to the marriage falling into shambles, the first thing comes and say, do you know before marriage we caught him drinking alcohol? So why didn't you think about that before? Why is this becoming issues now? I remember I was doing a marriage reconciliation in Florida, and the father-in-law said, do you know the day we were about to get married and we said to him to read the kalima, he didn't know the kalima. Now you want to bring that up 4 years, 5 years into the marriage after they had a child and now they're getting divorced. Now you want to bring that up that he didn't know this kalima, he didn't know the deen. So you understand, we go against the commands of the religion only to then highlight those deficiencies which we ignored. They never ignored it. If a person doesn't know their salah, they don't know their religion, they have a bad character, they have bad attitude, bad practices, and you're like, okay, fine, they're rich, they're good looking, good family, it's going to come and slap you on the face. I'm sorry to say, it's going to slap you back on the face because the character, the attitude is what destroys or upholds a marriage. If the person is rich and they're coming home 3 o'clock in the morning smelling like alcohol and drugs, what are your kids going to grow up looking at? You know what? Allah promised something in the Quran which is so amazing. إِن يَكُونُوا فُقَرَاء. If both of you, the husband and wife to be, are poor, get married. If the character is good, the religion is good, just get married. يُغْنِهِمُ Allah will enrich both of them min fadlihi, from his treasures. Just get married. Because if the character of the person is good, if the character is good, that means their attitude will always get them somewhere in life. And of course, they're hardworking, they're trying, they're striving, they're committed, they're responsible. The Prophet ﷺ is saying this hadith, if someone comes to you, either from your father's side or from the girl's side, she brings someone forward to the father, father brings someone to the girl, and basically in aspect to that person's religious life, the person's moral well-being, the person's conduct, their character, it's good. But they might not have all the other factors that you wish they had. You know what? This relationship will be able to weather the storm. Get married. If you don't get married, illam taf'alu, the hadith says, if you don't do that, if you're like, but that person doesn't have a master's degree, they only have a bachelor's degree, or they're coming from family, no one knows their name, or they're coming, again, it's amazing we put the family first in the criteria of marriage, or they're from a big family or small family, and then we down the road make the complaint the in-laws are intruding into our life. You use the in-laws as a caliber of acknowledgement of their integrity and their respect and their honor. Now you're saying they're sticking their nose into your marriage. You're not marrying the family. You're not marrying the in-laws. You're not marrying the brothers and sisters that they have. You're marrying the individual. And if they have if there's a void of character, there's a void of morals, there's a void of responsibility, how long is a girl willing to take up the responsibilities on that individual's behalf? Marriage is not going to last long. But if there was good people, and today I've heard from so many parents, it's so hard to find a good person today. Before, there were so many good people. No one cared to marry. People were like, where's your engineer and doctorate degree? And now they're saying, you can't find good people, but you're finding rich people. You're finding educated people. You're finding people who come with a lot of money. What happened now? Well, the Prophet ﷺ said this, إِلَّمْ تَفْعَلُوا. If you do not do so, تَكُنْ فِتْنَةٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَفَسَادٌ كَبِيرٌ. There will be great fitna, strife, and mischief on this earth. What does that mean? We're in that fitna right now. No one wants to get married. Kids are telling their parents, don't even think about asking us about marriage. Because they see their elder sister or elder brother go through this marriage and problems and divorce, and they see all the fights. They're like, you know what? We don't want this. But then my question becomes this. Can any human being be celibate? Could any human being actually refrain from sexual activities and reproduction? Can that happen? No, it cannot. The Catholic Church serves as an example to all of us in a faith where they say the priests cannot get married, amount of pedophilia, the amount of nuns and priests doing things behind closed doors. It is something Allah did not prescribe in this deen. He said, this deen, the Prophet said, La rahbaniyata fil Islam. There is no celibacy in this religion. Allah does not want you to wear ihram, go sit in front of the Kaaba and die there. This is not our Islam. Allah doesn't want you to wear burqa and sit in the masjid till you die. This is not our Islam. Our Islam is live life. But live that life and connect you. Huh? The life, yes. You have to be part of your family. You have to be part of your community. You have to be part of your work. But you have to also take your Islam to those places. And the one fitna that started in the religion of Christianity through Catholicism was celibacy, that the priests will not get married. They're too pure to get married. No one's pure. No one is pure. So anyone who says this is a great scholar and a saint and they don't get married, or she's a great alima or something and she doesn't get married, she cannot be good in Allah's eyes. He cannot be good in Allah's eyes because they've discarded half their deen. Half your deen is marriage. So don't give me the speech of piety of a person who cannot get married and complete half their religion. Their books are not going to complete half that religion. This is the false perception that we're putting in our heads. Every human being has needs and desires. And those needs Allah has put in us. Those desires Allah has put in us. And He put the halal way of making it fulfilled. That's called nikah. In the absence of the halal, no girl, no boy, no man, no woman will stay pure outside. And you know exactly where I'm going with this. It's not going to happen. That's what Allah said. There'll be fitna and fasad. The sleeping around and all this that's happening in our society is a result of people saying, why get married? Why commit to anyone? What was the backbone on this? We once upon a time had good people who were raised with good morals and values, women and men alike. I'm not saying just the men, the women and men alike. But the thought would be, oh, I'm a doctor and she's an uneducated person, so why should I marry her? Or vice versa, And now there's this big rise of parents telling their children, become educated, become independent, because no man should have to take care of you. See, this is all the result of the misunderstanding of marriage. Marriage wasn't about that. Marriage isn't about a man taking care of a woman. Khadija radiallahu anha took care of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So tell me if that was wrong. Khadija radiallahu anha, she took care of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's not about taking care of someone. It's about becoming partners in this journey of life. Our culture messed it up, and this is a result of the culture that we messed up in the name of Islam. And now we're looking back at Islam and saying, what happened? What happened wasn't Islam. What happened was our ignorance. Just as a true Muslim young man will not be attracted to the pretty girls who have grown up in the bad environments, so the Muslim young woman who is guided by her religion will not be attracted to, and I'm reading what the book is saying. He's saying to stupid playboy types, no matter how handsome they may be. Rather, she will be attracted to the serious, educated, believing man who is clean living and pure of heart, whose behavior is good, whose understanding of religion is sound. No one is a suitable partner for the good, believing woman except a good, believing man. And no one is a suitable partner for a wayward, immoral woman, but a wayward, immoral man. Now, what the author is saying here, that's what it's about. You go to the school, it's about who's the hunk in the class or who's the best cheerleader in the school. Like, this is a criteria of who is the best person. And I ask of you to ask your children who may be of age and grown up, where are those kids in the world today? Growing up in the West and keeping in touch with my classmates from school, majority of the ones who, were the successful ones are nowhere to be found anymore. Because this is the false criteria that was kept in the head. They're the hunk of the class, he's got blue eyes and blonde hair, or she's got blonde hair and she's the most prettiest one. What happened to them? And you know what Allah then says in the Quran, chapter 24, verse 26? It's a very open sign. Now, we're not to point fingers on others. Point fingers on yourself when Allah says this verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Al-khabithatu lil-khabithin, wal-khabithuna lil-khabithat. Women who are impure are for men who are impure, and men who are impure are for women who are impure. I.e., the inclination, if you have towards such an attitude or such a person with such character, is because it may be so that within you that same sentiment exists. Why couldn't they say opposites attract? But when it comes to characters and morals and stuff, there should be no compromising this. Tall and short is different. But we're talking about a person who is impure. Why would someone pure find an inclination towards impurity? Right? An example that we're always given, not suitable solely for this, and not only targeting this, is that if you were to put a gourmet buffet in front of a pig, where's the pig gonna go? To? He's gonna go to the garbage. He's gonna go to the impurity. He doesn't want good smelling food. He wants dirt, right? So it's the nature of the pig. It's not the fault in the food. A person who has bad habits, bad character, it's become a part of them. Why would anyone be inclined to that? That's what your Bollywood, Hollywood culture has given you, right? And in India, which this has continued to be a problem, the Hindu caste system and everything else, but it's affected our Muslims also. That someone who's lower, a lower life than what you are in sense of social status, your son or daughter should not even entertain marriage with that person. And what did Islam say? If they have good character, they're hardworking, they're pure in their nature, get married, get them married off. You will be happy. It's a promise from the Prophet ﷺ. You will be happy. But if you don't want to do that, Allah is saying the reason is this. Al-khabithatu lil-khabithina wal-khabithuna lil-khabithat. Then Allah says, وَالطَّيِّبَاتِ لِلطَّيِّبِينَ وَالطَّيِّبُونَ لِلطَّيِّبَاتِ. And women of purity are for men of purity, and men of purity are for women of purity. If you are chaste, if you are pure, if you are good in your ways, and that everyone has some bad habits, but those bad habits do not become your defining factor, then inshallah you'll find someone who's also good in their ways. Now, this doesn't mean that every marriage that happens should have been under this criteria. It may so be that Allah brings to someone a good person. She's pure. Allah brings a pure guy, but she then rejects him. She or her family rejects him. There's so many cases of children trying to get together, but there's always some hindrance. Either she's not happy, he's not happy, their parents are not happy, or his parents are not happy. It just never ends. And so Allah brings forth the good. If we discard the good, then ultimately what are they looking for? Something which is not good for them. Allah will always give us the good. The chances are that if we're good to acknowledge it, then we'll take it. If we don't acknowledge it, we will lose it. This does not mean that the Muslim woman should completely ignore the matter of physical appearance and put up with unattractiveness or ugliness. This is not what the hadith is saying. It is her right, as it stated last week, to marry a man for whom her heart may be filled with love and who is pleasing to her both in his appearance and his conduct. Appearance should not be neglected at the expense of inner nature, and inner nature should not be compromised for the sake of appearance. See, you're not supposed to compromise that. They may not look like the Hrithik Roshan or Salman Khan that people are looking for, but they're a good human being. See, what happens is that our minds are played with. We're being flirted in our mind with all these pictures and Hollywood celebrities. If they were to take off their makeup and not dye their hair, they look like the ugliest people alive. We're just putting down this farce. It's fake. It's all fake. And what happens is that you grow up with this mentality that if someone is worthy of me or if I'm worthy of someone, they should be of this standard. All your commercials, all your actors and your actresses are all fake. You know why? That's what they're called, actors. They act. Their life is not real. Literally, their life is a living misery. They're as human as you are. They have the same challenges that you have. They're not above and beyond the law in any way in Allah's eyes. So when you watch a commercial and they make it look so nice, people are drinking alcohol on a Friday night after work and they're having a good time. No one has a good time. That's why bars are dark and dirty. It's not a good time. People who live in the life of drugs and smoking and all these other vices, it's not a good time. But if you were to sell the reality image of these things, you would not sell the product. You have to sell a lie. Allah does not sell a lie. Allah sells the truth. He presents the truth. He gives you exactly what the truth is. And so no one is saying, remember, we're talking about balance here. Just as much as saying she has a right in her marriage and she has a word in her marriage, her father also has a say in the marriage. The father will make the decision, but he has to make the decision on the basis that she also has a word in it. In the same way, if you're going to look at looks only, you're going to fail. If you're going to look at character only and compromise the looks and stuff, there are very few who can do that. Like the story of Julaybib, where the Prophet ﷺ sent the proposal for one of the most beautiful women of Medina. And she said, if the Prophet ﷺ said it, I will accept Julaybib. He was short in stature. He was a bit deformed. He was dark in complexion. But she said, if Rasulullah ﷺ said it's good, then it's good. There's very few who will take that. But the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us here, and the author is expanding, don't just look at this, and certainly never, never compromise inner goodness and inner conduct, their good conduct in their morals because of looks. Right? A woman should choose a man who is attractive to her in all aspects, who will gain her admiration and respect. Now the problem is, as I just said, a man who is attractive to her in all aspects. If you were told to close your eyes and for a second ask yourself, what is the definition of attractive? A picture of something or someone will come up. Yes? That's called brainwashing. All these magazine people and whatever else, all these magazines people read, and it's stuck an image in your head of who is a good-looking man and who's a good-looking woman. It's stuck in your head. And that's the reason why it's become difficult to understand, what does attractiveness mean? There's a click and a connection between a man and a woman when they meet each other. There's a source of comfort. They find admiration in how things are. It's an open mind. It's not a closed mind. It's not an indoctrinated mind. It's a mind that thinks for itself. So again, it's hard in a world that's filled with posters and advertisements and TV shows and movies to understand and think for yourself, what does attractiveness mean to you? The true Muslim woman is never dazzled by outward appearances, and she never lets them distract her from seeing the essence of a potential spouse. The Muslim woman knows that the man has the right of qiwama over her. As the Quran says, men are the protectors and maintainers. Now remember one thing, الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ, chapter 4, verse 34. Does not, and let me say very clearly, does not mean protector, does not mean maintainer. Qiwama means the responsibility of the end result. There is not an English word that can correctly and completely give the translation of qawamun. Qawamun basically means this. In any given team, if it's basketball or anything else, there has to be the captain of the team. Now, the captain of the team doesn't necessarily mean they're the most talented player on the team. It means that they're the best selected to make the decisions for the team on the football field, for example. Now, that captain has a responsibility to make sure that the plays are good, and that if the team loses, the captain takes responsibility for that loss. And then the coach. A marriage is teamwork. Do you all agree? Now the question is, who's the captain on the team? Now a woman could say, well, I'm the captain. A man could say, I'm the captain. Allah's saying, if Allah's a coach, if you take this metaphor, Allah's a coach. Allah made the man the captain. What does that mean? That a man has to take the responsibility of ensuring whatever happens in the house, in the family, with the family, for the family, has to be what's right. And if something goes wrong, he stands responsible for that today and tomorrow. That doesn't mean he dictates. That doesn't mean he makes the decisions without asking her. It's teamwork. The team is working together. They will say, okay, captain, I think we should do this play now. And the captain will say, well, it's a good idea, but I think we should do that play. Regardless what play he does, he has to take the responsibility of the burden. Not to celebrate success, the responsibility of the burden. So women, nurture the kids. If Allah forbid the children go bad tomorrow, Allah will not hold you if you nurtured the children. Allah will hold the father why those children went bad. Because the responsibility of the children lies on the father. But what does our culture say? The mother. The mother does it out of her grace and love because the fathers are so preoccupied in what they do. But the responsibility lies on the father. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, Anta wa maluka li abik. He said to a Sahabi, you and your wealth belong to your father.
So I am not responsible for my kids in front of Allah?
If you did your part, which was nurturing them, their part, the men's part, is to educate them and morally build them. Nurturing is love. Nurturing is showing the kindness and goodness. Nurturing is nursing them. This is all nurturing. But if they grow up and they don't want to practice Islam, they want to leave Islam, they don't believe, na'udhu billah, Allah will hold the father accountable for this.
Even if you teach them and you are,
Well, that this where it goes down to, did you do all that you needed to do in your part? See, Nuh alayhi salam did everything and more.
Yeah.
So the thing is, we are not doing in our power today. We are hoping others will do it for us. How many parents actively teach your kids at home? They say, well, Sunday school should take care of it,
Yes.
right? You're hoping other people should raise your children. So that's not taking care. Taking care doesn't mean they went to school and they figured it out. No, taking care means sitting with them and doing that homework and making sure they understand it. See, the teacher's job is to teach them. Your job is to make sure they understand. Their hope is that they will pass. You understand? You cannot blame the failing child on the teacher. If the parents didn't do their part, the teacher cannot be blamed. Same way, the teacher is like the mother. The parents are like the father. The father needs to make sure that the child gets through. And so, yes, it hurts the mother also, but the mother is only as responsible as she can be. When it comes to, for example, a divorce and child custody in Islam, who gets the child? Does anyone know? Father. If the child is 7 and above, the father gets it. You know why? The father is responsible for this child. Imagine, and it sounds hard, imagine if the father could just leave and walk off and get married to someone else. They can produce as many children in this world and no one would take responsibility. And here our mothers are tied down with this child. Doesn't mean the mother doesn't get a right to see a child. Of course she does. But the prime responsibility by default, الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ, means the father better step up to the plate and do his job. This is what it means. So when it says الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ, doesn't mean the father or the husband's a dictator. The husband will make the decision. He will impose the laws. No, the Prophet ﷺ and Aisha radiallahu used to discuss everything. From what's going to be cooked in the house, what's going to happen today, everything was discussed. If it was her opinion or his opinion that became the final decision, the Prophet ﷺ was responsible for its outcome. Understand this. So this is what qiwa means. A partnership, a team atmosphere where there is a captain. Doesn't mean the captain is the best of the best. It means the captain is taking the responsibility to ensure everyone produces and brings forth the best from within themselves. And this is because Allah has given the one the more responsibility than the other, and because they support from their means. Now when Allah says, وَبِمَا أَنفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a standard that not only are they responsible, for the actions, they're also responsible financially. This verse should not be taken to mean that, well, a lady cannot work and a man has to always pay for a woman. No, a lady, if she was to work, her finances can be used to help the family if she wishes. If not, then those finances can be used how she deems fit, so long it fits the morals and the standards of Islam and the family. Right?
In that case, like if a lot of time
Mhm.
the lady is not working, but she asks for this and that, shouldn't to her husband, right?
Well, the thing is that she has the right to ask, but the
Yeah, but
question
if
is,
he cannot afford it.
well, then that's where the problem comes, right? That's disconnect. Think about it. The disconnect in our families today is such, and this is across the board. A person could be making $250,000 right now, but she's asking for a $500,000 lifestyle. The question is, they're so disconnected from each other's reality. He's scared of coming up and telling her the truth of what the reality is because he fears that she may not like him anymore for this, or she feels that she needs to fit in the level of the society that she's a part of. It's misery. You see, if there was no credit cards, how would we all be living? If there was no loan system, how would we all be living? Ask yourself this. In Saudi Arabia till the mid to late 90s, if a family went out for shopping that weekend, if they're going to buy a BMW, they'll buy a BMW cash. That's how it was. But then they introduced a credit card system and a loan system. It's the same as America. You can't afford it. You get an escalated $1,600 a month payment. You can't afford it. But you put it onto this payment plan and you put it against your credit and you're working harder to pay it off, makes you more miserable. It detaches a husband from a wife. And so what happened with the Prophet ﷺ? He would ask Aisha radiallahu anha, what's there for food today? She would say, Ya Rasulullah, nothing. Nothing. Straightforward, there's nothing. And that's it, accept it, there's nothing. 3 months would pass and the Prophet ﷺ's oven wouldn't be lit, the fire wouldn't be lit. Why? There's nothing to cook. So the thing is that one of the biggest hurdles in a marriage's success in America, especially that I know because I don't counsel in other countries, is finances. It doesn't matter where the person is. There is a disconnect when it comes to communication and finances. Financial expectations skyrocket. It is very, very bad. So when the responsibility of her clothing, her food, her house is on the husband, he should be, stable enough to provide these. But the question then becomes, what kind of food? What kind of house? What kind of clothing? Eid is coming up. I want a $600 dress. Does that make sense? Now you have to ask yourself these questions, right? We have to ask ourselves, what have we done to our homes? If the wife was to ask that today and the husband is to ask that today, I'm sure we will find where our common mistakes lies. We all have made our mistakes. And the thing is that what was a priority when the Prophet ﷺ said deen, choose someone for their deen. What did deen mean? That what's your priority of making this money, spending the money, saving the money, building the children's lives? What was your priorities? Because mashallah, if you can afford it, yeah, you can afford a Mercedes, drive a Mercedes. None of my business. Allah's happy if you can afford it and you do it. But remember, if that comes at the cost of, for example, something which is essential, food, children's education, children's health, your personal health, your water bill, your electricity bill, if that's coming in a way that it's compromising these essential needs, then that's not Allah's blessing. That becomes Allah's curse on you. You understand? If a person has millions of dollars and want to buy a $50,000 car, that's good for them. They can afford it. They could buy it straight out and it shouldn't affect them. But the question is a person who cannot. And then the question becomes at the home, well, she got the new one, why can't I get it? This is exactly where marriages go to die. And again, there's a reason why you have what you have and another person has what they have, because that's their risk and this is your risk. The Prophet ﷺ wanted risk that he can use, not risk that he would have to hide and save. When he passed away, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had nothing to his name. He had nothing to his name. His armor was given as a loan to a Jewish business person in exchange for money he took. He had nothing to his name. He enjoyed what he had. Today, we are in a society where we enjoy what we don't have and then we slave to make it ours. 30 years to get this house for yours. I understand we all need to get, especially in Plano and Frisco, it's super expensive. It is super expensive. But based on your needs, save up, get your house, live it simple. The other day I was talking to a few friends. They're talking about a lot of these Indians who are here on H-1 visas and they're working in companies. They've bought big houses because that's their financial investment. If they have to go back, they could sell it. But he said if you went into their houses, there's nothing in their houses. There's a mattress on the floor. There's no furniture. You know why? Because they know that that's not worth it. They don't know what their status will be in this country. So long they pump that money into their house, Allah forbid they lose their visas and they have to go back home. They could sell the house, make that money back and more, and just walk off. And these are people living in big houses, and this is their thought. This is called planning. Now, I'm not saying you should do that. I'm admiring the fact that's how a family plans. Like, where can we put our money for the betterment of our children and stuff? But if you're not investing, if you're not looking at the future of your children, if you're not looking for a rainy day, most Americans don't even have $500 to their name. In a country where you may face a medical emergency, may Allah forbid, or something like this happens, where does that money come from? So again, man is protector, maintainer is what the translation is given of qawamun. It means he's like the captain of the team. And the responsibility should be on him. He should be held accountable for that. She should then be a team player and not worry about the accountability from Allah except for what she needs to do, but she works with him to make sure that they do what they need to do so that children become who they have to become. Now, when you have to live a certain standard lifestyle and both of you then have to work for it and you have to work extensive hours because you have a 4,800 square foot home and there's only 3 of you in the house, your child is not going to see you. Your child will grow up not seeing you. And then you will lose the same child for whom you made this delusion that you're working for. As I said, we have to be real in our lives. We really do have to. And that's what these chapters and books of such nature give us the opportunity to reflect. Because I promise, if we were talking about something else, if we're talking about Asma al-Husna, or we're talking about fiqh, or anything else, or seerah, mashallah, they're good topics, I don't think we'd be having the opportunity to reflect internally as we read such material that are only found in such books. So moving forward, she wants to marry a man of whose qiwama over her she will feel proud of. How many players want to go to Real Madrid or Barcelona or whatever, and they'll say, like, we're proud to be in this team. We're proud to be of this organization. We're proud to be under the leadership of this captain, right? So same way, she should marry someone that she'll be proud to be a team player of. It's a team. You're a team. You're not two separate entities. In a home today, we're like two teams clashing against each other. You're one team. Imagine in basketball, 2 players start fighting each other over the ball. You're on the same team. Pass the ball to each other. Why are you fighting each other? That's what's happening in the home. You're supposed to be a team. Now we're opponents in the same house. She should feel proud of whom she will marry and be happy and never regret it. She wants a man who will take her hand and set out to fulfill their life's mission of establishing a Muslim family and raising a new generation of intelligent and caring children in an atmosphere of love and harmony, which will not be impeded by conflicting attitudes and religious differences. Well, let me tell you one thing. If you want love and harmony in the home, the biggest thing that breaks love and harmony is finances. Just keep that in mind. Believing men and believing women are supposed to walk side by side in the journey of life, which is a serious matter for the believer, so that they may fulfill the great mission with which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has entrusted mankind, men and women alike. As the Quran says, chapter 33, verse 35, for Muslim men and women, for believing men and women, for devout men and women, for true men and women, for men and women who are patient and constant, for men and women who humble themselves, for men and women who give in charity, for men and women who fast, for men and women who guard their chastity, for men and women who engage much in Allah's praise. For them, Allah has prepared forgiveness and a great reward. That great reward isn't tomorrow. That great reward starts today. I said, we're so strained that we don't have time for ourselves. We're depleted. We don't have time for each other. We're exhausted. We don't have time for our children. We're impatient. Just have to tweak your life. And we just have to become, let's sit down. Husband and wife just says, you know what, let's talk about our finances. Look, you're the one working. I'm not the one working, right? Just say. And I trust